Okay, so I think we'll get started here. Hi everyone, thanks for attending our webinar today. Good morning, good afternoon for those of you on the East Coast. My name is Mike Jones and I'm the product manager at ViewsIQ. The topic of today's webinar is going to be digital pathology and in particular Panoptic, which is a new method of affordably digitally scanning slides using your own computer and microscope. My presentation today is about 25 minutes long and we should have time for a few questions at the end. So if you think of a question at any time during the webinar, just enter it in the comments box and I'll answer it at the end of the webinar. And any questions that we don't have time for during the Q&A session, I will address by email afterwards. So this is probably familiar territory for most of you, but I'd like to begin just by providing a brief overview of the field of digital pathology. So broadly defined, digital pathology refers to the conversion of analog data to digital data. And in particular, when we talk about digital pathology, we're usually talking about the conversion of glass microscope slides to digital images that can be viewed, analyzed, and managed on a computer. And if these images are of a suitable quality, they can also be used by pathologists to visually interpret samples in place of glass microscope slides. Modern pathology is currently undergoing a gradual transition towards the use of digital microscopy alongside conventional light microscopy. In addition to educational and research applications, digital imaging is currently being used for clinical purposes, including frozen section consultation, rapid on-site evaluation of fine needle biopsies, and even image analysis to quantify specific biomarkers as a supplement to ordinary visual interpretation of microscope slides. Implementing digital pathology has a number of advantages for both clinical and educational institutions. For hospitals, digital pathology can help remove barriers of access to pathology expertise. Through telepathology, institutions that lack expertise in a particular subspecialty can consult external experts for difficult cases. And this leads to greater collaboration amongst healthcare providers, and ultimately it improves the standard of care for patients. Digital pathology also allows for more efficient management of pathological data because images can be archived and retrieved in a more organized, intelligent way. And digital images are also very useful for pathology education because they allow an entire group to view a single slide while avoiding the variability that comes from serial sections. So although digital pathology encompasses image analysis, archival, retrieval, among other things, this webinar is focused on the image acquisition component of digital pathology. And for the remainder of the webinar, I'm going to be discussing conventional image acquisition methods, which in practice means whole slide scanners, in order to contrast them with Panoptic, which is the new user-driven personalized digital imaging platform. So conventionally, whole slide scanners are a necessary part of any digital pathology practice. There are a variety of scanners available now from many different vendors, but all of them follow the same basic principle, which is that you load one or more slides into the scanner. The scanner automatically scans them and generates image files that can be viewed on a computer. These scanners have a number of advantages. They can be partially automated, although a technician is still required to prepare, load, and run the machine. They can process up to several hundred slides per batch for the higher throughput scanners. And since the scanning methodology is the same for every slide that's scanned, they're a fairly standardized method for image acquisition. Whole slide scanners have been available for over 10 years now, and there's a large body of literature establishing their suitability for generating images that are interpretable by pathologists in a number of disciplines. But there's still a number of niches that aren't well served by existing technologies for image acquisition. Cytology, hematology, and microbiology are examples of these disciplines where the samples are inherently three-dimensional or require imaging at greater than 40x. Whole slide scanners typically support a limited range of objectives, usually 20 or 40x, and higher magnifications can be required for disciplines like hematology and microbiology in particular. When it comes to imaging three-dimensional samples, some whole slide scanners have the ability to scan several planes of focus. However, because file size and scanning time increase linearly with the number of focal planes that are scanned, whole slide Z-stacking, or scanning multiple focal planes, dramatically increases the storage requirements, so the file size, and the imaging time required for scanning slides. And these are some of the technical hurdles that have limited the extent to which some of these fields have been able to adopt digital pathology so far. And in addition to these field-specific challenges, there are a number of practical barriers when it comes to implementing whole slide scanners. One would be that they're expensive. They cost up to several $100,000 for the higher end scanners. And this makes them difficult to justify fitting into the budget, especially for educational applications or low throughput applications. They also require special training to operate and often even dedicated full-time staff to run the scanner and do QC. Whole slide scanners also create a number of challenges that are associated with workflow. Because they're so dissimilar to the ordinary light microscopy environment, the existing pathology workflows must be redesigned around them. They also separate pathologists from the imaging process, and because the imaging process is automated and carried out by a machine, there can be high rates of errors or of regions being scanned at a suboptimal focus. Also, they're batch-oriented, so they're designed to process one or several slides in a single batch, and this can lead to bottlenecks during busy times and lengthy waiting periods because the throughput is fixed. And this can be frustrating for pathologists or for anyone who wants to have a slide scanned, particularly if all you want to do is scan a region of interest for use in, say, a presentation or a tumor board. Sometimes you may have to wait, depending on your institution, several hours or even days for the slide to be sent to the scanning facility, scanned, and the image returned to you. So many of these workflow challenges are related to the fact that whole slide scanners separate image acquisition from image interpretation. And I'm going to move on now to discuss Panoptic, which is a new system that was designed to combine the image acquisition and interpretation steps and allow user-driven digital imaging from your own microscope. So as I mentioned, Panoptic is a novel digital imaging system that was designed to overcome the challenges that are associated with conventional whole slide scanners. Panoptic is personalized and software-based, and it was designed to enhance rather than replace the existing microscopy workflow. Panoptic can be used to create panoramic digital scans and videos from glass slides at any magnification from 2x to 100x. The scans can be of entire slides or just of select regions of interest because the user always remains in control of the scanning process. So I'll explain a little bit more what Panoptic consists of. Panoptic is a software-based rather than a hardware-based system. The only hardware that's required is a high-res digital video camera. And this camera can be mounted to any existing microscope that you have in your office or lab. And it allows any objective that's on that microscope, from 2x to 100x oil, to be used for scanning images. And when you use Panoptic, as you'll see in a minute, you use the stage controls on the microscope that you're already familiar with. The other piece of hardware in the Panoptic system is just your personal computer that you would already have in your office or lab. Any computer that meets a few minimum requirements is capable of running the Panoptic software, and I can go over those requirements a little bit later as well. So in order to show you how Panoptic works, I'd like to use this quick video. I'll just navigate to the right spot in the video. So right now we're looking at the Panoptic interface as it appears on the computer screen. As you can see with the inset box, the user has the microscope set up right beside the computer, and that box will show how the user moves the microscope stage controls in order to create the Panoptic image. So on the left in the software interface, we see the scan view. And this is where all the fields that view that are stitched together are going to appear. On the right is the live view, and that always displays what the camera attached to the microscope is currently seeing. And so you'll see in just a second, as the user begins moving the microscope stage, the software automatically and in real time stitches together a panoramic digital image of the slide. In this case, the user is scanning a pap smear at 10x. And as the user is scanning the slide, if they identify a region of interest that they want to image at a higher magnification, say 40x, they can simply switch to that objective on their microscope. They can then resume scanning, and what the software will do is embed a 40x scan on top of that low-powered 10x scan. And both these scans will be saved in a single image file that can be viewed later. The other main feature of the software is the ability to record video Z-stacks. So the user here has simply clicked the Z-stack record button. They've scrolled through the focus on their microscope. And now you'll see that they can pull up this Z-stack and play through that video for very smooth virtual focal scrolling. And this is different from conventional whole slide scanners because, unlike whole slide scanners where you're usually limited to maybe 3 or 5 planes of focus, with Panoptic you can collect up to 1,000 planes of focus because you're recording a video with 15 frames per second, and because you have a minute and a half to record that video. So I'm just going to skip ahead in the video here. When scanning is complete, you'll have a digital scan of the entire slide, likely at a relatively low magnification, say 4 or 10x. And within that scan, you'll have Z-stacks and high-power scans embedded at regions of interest. And these act as digital ink marks. They can be opened and reviewed or annotated at any time, either by the user or by anyone else who opens the image using the image viewing software. So here, the user has opened up a Z-stack recording, and they're now, after image acquisition, able to scroll through the focus just like they would be able to using the microscope. So just to review, there are really three core features of Panoptic. The first is the ability to stitch together panoramic digital images in real time while you're viewing the slide. The second is the ability to embed high-powered region of interest scans within the parent scan. These can be imaged at up to 100x. The image quality is driven directly by the optical quality of your microscope. And because you're only scanning regions of interest rather than the entire slide, the file size stays minimal compared to if you were scanning the entire slide at 100x or 40x. And the third key feature is the targeted video-based Z-stacking. As you saw, this allows you to capture specific regions of interest as a high frame rate video that can be played back later to virtually scroll through the focus. And this makes Panoptic ideal for applications like cytology or other disciplines where samples are three-dimensional and where it would typically be very difficult to capture the full detail of the sample using a whole slide scanner. Just to provide a high-level comparison and contrast of whole slide scanners with Panoptic. With whole slide scanners, the scanning process is centralized. There are usually one or a few scanners in a core facility, and it's batch-oriented, so slides are scanned in batches. With Panoptic, the scanning process is decentralized, so you can have as many image acquisition stations as you have microscopes and computers, and it's in parallel. So multiple slides can be scanned independently in parallel at the different workstations rather than being scanned in batches at a central facility. And that means that with Panoptic, whenever you have a slide that you want to scan, you can just go over to your computer and microscope, open up the software, and a minute or two later, you can have your digital scan of the slide. With whole slide scanners, image acquisition is automated. As I mentioned, the whole slide is scanned, whereas with Panoptic, the image acquisition is user-driven, and it's based on regions of interest. Whole slide scanners usually support a limited range of objectives. 20x and 40x are the most common objectives found, and sometimes the 40x is actually just a 20x with a 2x digital zoom. And with Panoptic, you can use any objective that you have on your microscope already, from 2x up to 100x oil. With whole slide scanners, a typical file size would usually be in the range of 500 megabytes to 10 or more gigabytes. And if you're scanning a slide at a high magnification or with multiple Z-planes, that file size is certainly going to add up very quickly. With Panoptic, the file size is a lot smaller because you're usually only scanning specific regions of interest at a high power. And so the file size with Panoptic would be often more like 5 to 500 megabytes. This smaller file size means that your storage requirements are going to be a lot lower. It'll be easier to archive and retrieve images with less load on your server. And because the images are smaller, file sharing and transfer is going to be inherently faster. Some of the advantages of taking a software-based approach with Panoptic as opposed to a hardware-based approach with whole slide scanners include that it eliminates the need for purchasing that expensive equipment. All you're purchasing is the software itself, a digital video camera, and if your own personal computer doesn't meet the minimum specs, you can source one through us, or we can recommend one. Panoptic can be easily integrated with your existing workflows and equipment. And because there's no expensive hardware associated with it, a software subscription can be offered for less than the cost of shipping a single slide per day. And this subscription option, as opposed to the purchase of the permanent software option, license option, is something that we've introduced really recently, and we're very excited about because we think for the first time this makes digital pathology really feasible to incorporate for those lower throughput or those maybe more niche or educational applications. Some of the applications that Panoptic is particularly well suited for include cytology, hematology, and clinical microbiology, where it's really the only imaging system that's capable of capturing the full complexity of these samples in 3 dimensions and at up to 100x oil. For anatomic pathology, Panoptic allows pathologists to scan and share slides from their own desk and microscope. There's no waiting for a shared scanner. You don't have to send the slide away to be scanned. You can just do it yourself in a few minutes. And for education, Panoptic allows institutions to create online curricula that have fully annotated digital teaching slides. And these can be hosted for the students to access offline at their convenience so that they can come to class better prepared for discussion. I'd like to finish just by reviewing a recent study which was carried out at the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center, or UPMC. In order to determine whether Panoptic could accurately scan frozen section slides while avoiding the issues of large file size and 3-dimensional imaging that are encountered using whole slide scanning systems, Dr. Pantanowitz at UPMC and colleagues designed a study to compare Panoptic to both conventional light microscopy and a leading whole slide scanner. So in brief, Dr. Pantanowitz and colleagues randomly selected 20 genitourinary pathology frozen section cases. And all of these cases were evaluated using Panoptic, conventional light microscopy, and also an Aperio whole slide scanner. For each of these imaging systems, the pathologists rendered diagnoses and rated image quality and diagnostic confidence on a scale of 1 to 10. Using the Panoptic system, a resident created panoramic images of the entire slides at 4x, and they embedded region of interest Z-stacks at 40x at representative regions of interest. And this workflow was designed to mirror that of ordinary microscopy, where a pathologist or a tech would typically review a slide at low power and periodically switch up to a higher objective to investigate potential abnormalities. When did it cut out?
10 seconds ago.
Okay. Sorry about that. We just had an audio issue for a minute there. I'm just going to jump back about 20 seconds or so in the presentation. So just reviewing the results, Panoptic received high ratings for diagnostic confidence and image quality. There was diagnostic concordance in all but one of the cases, so 59 out of 60. And the authors also found that the Z-stacking function allowed accurate focusing on tissue folds and bubbles, which were not always captured accurately using the whole slide scanner. And lastly, the image files using Panoptic were significantly smaller. So the digital files were an average of 25 megabytes compared to 177 megabytes for the whole slide scanning system. So less than a fifth of the a sixth of the size. Now, the conclusions of this study were that Panoptic is a new system that is suitable for frozen section telepathology. Panoptic images are easy to generate and navigate, and they're small compared to whole slide images. The system also provides a means of overcoming some of the focusing problems common to whole slide imaging, so thicker or uneven tissue sections, folds, or bubbles. And the authors also noted that Panoptic, because it's user-driven rather than automated, it requires a minimum level of pathology expertise in the operator. So the operator should ideally be someone who has been trained in microscopy. To summarize the presentation, Panoptic is a new, intuitive, easily integrated platform for digital pathology. It allows decentralized and user-initiated imaging for types of samples that include cytology, hematology, microbiology, and other difficult tissue types. It's also ideal for applications such as cytopathology, frozen section consultation, and pathology education. And again, we're very excited to be able to offer a software subscription for less than the cost of shipping a slide per day. And we're also offering a 30-day risk-free guarantee if you'd like to try the software. If you try it out and decide that it's not for you, then you can just return the camera within 30 days and get the initial investment back. If you'd like any more information about that, you can just email info@viewsiq.ca. Okay, thank you very much, and I will just give a minute or two for any questions to come in. If you have any, please just submit them using the comments or questions box. Okay, so one of the questions is, what are the minimum specifications? So that's a great question. I mentioned that Panoptic could be run from your own personal computer with minimum specs. And in order to be able to run the software, the computer just has to have a quad-core CPU, 8 gigabytes of RAM, we recommend, one USB 3 port, and it must run Windows 7s or higher. So another question that's come in is, what applications has Panoptic been evaluated for? So in addition to the frozen section study that I mentioned at UPMC, Panoptic has also been evaluated by UPMC for cytology and microbiology, as well as telehematology at Vancouver General Hospital, locally here in Vancouver. If anyone wants any more information about those studies, I'm happy to pass along the details, and we have a few more validation studies currently underway at Massachusetts General Hospital and some other institutions. So someone else has asked about sharing images and how institutions might be able to do that. So that's a great question. Currently, images can be shared after acquisition simply by sending them between locations using a hosting service like Dropbox or just a USB key or however else you would ordinarily transfer files. But they can also be shared in real time by using a third-party screen sharing application. And a number of screen sharing applications can be used since you're just sharing the screen of the computer that you're using to run Panoptic. But the one that we typically recommend is TeamViewer. And we can work with institutions to figure out what solution would be best for them based on their particular IT requirements. I'll also just mention that currently we do have a web viewer that is free to download with unlimited copies. And we're also in the process of developing a web viewer. So that viewer I mentioned is not web-based, but we're in the process of developing a web viewer that will allow images to be hosted in the cloud and viewed from any location. So it's a bit too early to say when that web viewer will be ready, but we hope to have it out in spring or summer 2016. Okay, and I think we have time for just one more question. So someone has asked, is the subscription for the software only? That's correct. If you commit to a year's subscription of the software, we can include the digital video camera in the cost of that as well. But otherwise, yes, the subscription is for the software, although the product is a software-based product. Okay, so that's all the time we have today. Any questions that I didn't have time for, I apologize, but we will definitely follow up by email to answer those. And I will just wrap up by saying thank you all very much for attending the webinar, and have a great day. Thanks.